All right, let's get started. To leadership theory and practice. I'm so excited to be here with you, to be a part of this session with you and spend some time just talking about leadership theory, leadership models, and honestly, to prepare you for what leadership in ministry looks like. All right, so let me tell you a little bit about myself. I have been in ministry for over 25 years, and I've done everything from being the janitor all the way up to currently I'm an interim lead pastor at a church here in Virginia Beach area. And so I've done it all. The only thing I haven't done is I haven't done kids ministry. It's just not my area of expertise. And so I've sat on multiple boards, and I've really just spent a lot of time exploring all the different elements of ministry. Now, I come from the cornfields of Iowa, and God has granted me lots of opportunities over the course of my career, over the course of my life, to just meet lots of great pastors, lots of great leaders, and to learn from their models, to learn from the things that they've done, to learn from the things that they have experienced over the years in different contexts. I've been on church staff. I was on a church staff at a church plant. We had about 50, all the way up to I've been on staff at two churches that are 3,500 plus. And so I have a wide range of ministry experience. At the same time, I have a master's degree in organizational leadership, as well as a doctorate in strategic leadership foresight. And so I just have a broad range of leadership understanding. And quite honestly, I'm just a student of leadership. I've done lots of different things and worn a lot of different hats. I've authored a couple different books. I've had a podcast that's been running off and on since 2020. I launched about 2 weeks before COVID hit. So that was kind of an interesting adjustment to my plans when that happened. I've also been a consultant on various levels. I've been a business consultant as well as a ministry consultant, coached a lot of pastors, a lot of business leaders, a lot of entrepreneurs. And then I've also just been a speaker. I've spoken several different contexts in lots of different places. Obviously, I've preached to, all the way from youth, all the way up to adults, at a leadership conference and an author conference, just lots of different opportunities. And quite honestly, all those are great. And I've loved every minute of it, and I've loved all the experiences that God has given me. But ultimately, I'm just a student, just like you. I'm a student who just loves to learn, who loves to read, who loves to dive into information, who loves to put concepts together. And that's what I'm hoping that we'll be able to do as we go through this course together. A little bit about my family. I have three boys, Aiden, Isaiah, and Emerson. They are wonderful. They are full of energy, and they are constantly moving. They play lots of sports. They hike. We've done lots of camping trips, and we go to the beach as often as we can once it gets warm. It doesn't really matter to my boys how cold it is. They still swim in the ocean. It's crazy to me, but they love it. I'm an ordained pastor with the Assemblies of God. My wife, she is a physician assistant, so she has done lots of different things with that. She's been in the ER. She's also a dermatologist, a physician assistant. And then she's also currently on the roster for the Samaritan Purse DART team, which is the disaster relief team that travels around the world and responds to different disaster relief needs throughout the world. And so she's got lots of great experiences. Again, the boys are just lots of fun energy, and they keep us on our toes, keep us going. We also have a dog, a cat, and we have a lizard that my son has, Aiden. He loves it. And so, yeah, so we have a lot going on in our house. Now, what we're really going to look at over the course of this session is we're going to look at leadership and ministry and how those two things go together. Now, I pulled primarily from John Maxwell and his idea or the concept that leadership is influence. At the end of the day, we're going to look at lots of different leadership definitions, lots of different ways of approaching leadership and leadership theories. But when you boil them all down, good or bad, when you boil them all down, it really comes down to influence. Can you influence somebody to move from point A to point B? If you can, then you're exercising leadership. And so that's kind of my base point when it comes to leadership. My base point for ministry really just comes from Jesus. Therefore, go and make disciples of all nations. That's really what we're called to. Discipleship and the call that Jesus gives us to discipleship is not really a call to evangelism. It's a call to leadership. Go and influence people into a relationship with Jesus so that he can grow them, develop them, and move them closer to him. And so these are kind of our two pillars that we're going to start with. They're very simple. They're very basic. They're not huge academic pillars that we would necessarily look at, but I think that's kind of the point. We are talking about leadership and ministry. And sometimes in the academic world, when we're doing our studies and we're looking at lots of different information, it can get very complicated. And I want to make sure that we understand as we're going through this isn't complicated. It can get that way, but ultimately we're talking about influencing people into a relationship with Jesus. That's what ministry and leadership in ministry really is. And so that's what we're going to focus on as our foundation. And then we're going to build the complexity off of that as we go through this course. Now, we're going to have three primary books as we go through this course. The first one is The Leadership Theory and Practice by Northouse. Make sure that you get version 9 or edition 9. They recently just came out with edition 10. We'll be operating off edition 9, so make sure that's the one you get. And then we're going to use Organizational Behavior in Christian Perspective. This is a brand new book, actually just came out not too long ago. And so it's going to have a lot of great information similar to the Northouse book. However, it's going to have information more from a Christian perspective. And then finally, the Holy Bible. Obviously, we're going to use that when we're talking about ministry and leadership. I don't really have a preference for which one you use. I would say one that is easily understandable. I would say not a paraphrased version. I recommend the ESV, the NIV, or the RSV, but I'm not going to be super picky about which version you use. I would just say try and stay away from any paraphrases. All three of these books are going to go way beyond this course for you. I know for me, the Northouse book, I originally came across it when I was working on my doctoral work, and I have used it really as a reference book ever since. And every new edition that comes out has new information that others didn't, and so I try to keep up with the different editions as they come out. So all three of these books are going to be super helpful, not just for this course, but also beyond. You will not read through all of them. I will have the reading explained in the syllabus because there's too much in the books to read to keep up with all of it through this session. So just focus on the pages that I give you to read to make sure you're not reading too much. I will also have a few other handouts and articles that I will be giving throughout the course of the session, just because there are some pieces of information that I wanted to put into the course that are not in either of these books, but I didn't want to buy a whole nother book. And so I'll be giving you those throughout the course of this session. Now, how to be successful in this course. That's going to be very important. And it's really pretty simple. Read your books. If you do the reading, you will keep up just fine. The concepts and everything, your assignments mostly will come from your reading. So if you're not keeping up with the reading, you're going to have a hard time with some of the assignments. So really focus on your reading, keep up with it, find ways to carve out time to make sure you're reading through it. Again, I tried to make it so you're not reading a ton, but you are reading the necessary elements to keep up with what we're trying to do in this session, as well as just to give you a good understanding of what leadership theory and practice is going to look like, particularly in a ministry context. So read your books, ask questions. If something doesn't make sense, you don't understand it, please just ask the question. I would much rather you ask what would be maybe considered a dumb question in your mind. I would rather you ask that and let me answer it than just bypass it and keep going and then have no clue, or to be working off the wrong information. So make sure that you're asking questions along the way. The third thing is make sure you're focusing on your writing. You need to be a good writer. I'm not saying you need to be a professional writer or even a prolific writer. I would just say you need to write well throughout this course. You're going to write a lot. Academic work is writing. And so make sure that you're really paying attention to your content, how well you're writing it. Does it make sense? Does it flow? Do I have questions understanding it as I'm reading it? Or is it going to make sense to me? Also paying attention to all of your grammatical elements, all of your editing elements, as well as the Turabian style that we're using for our references. Make sure you're just paying attention to all those pieces. Really make yourself a student of writing throughout your academic career, but particularly in this class, make sure you're writing well, because I will be paying attention to those and I will be editing as I go. And so if I need to, I will correct your writing, and I will also dock points if it's necessary. So make sure you're really putting the effort into the writing. And then the fourth thing is just think deeply. I don't want you going through this session just getting by. I don't want you going through this session just mailing in the information. I really want you to think through it, because if you're serious about going into ministry and you're serious about being successful moving forward, you need to be able to think deeply. And in this particular session, we're talking about your leadership. What kind of leadership are you wanting to deploy in your relationship with people, in your jobs, in your ministry context? You decide what kind of leader you're going to be. And if you're not processing and thinking through that, then you're going to struggle really identifying what kind of leadership style you want, how you're going to implement that into your life, and then also just how is that going to work with the people that you're leading. And so really hone in your ability to think through the concepts and the ideas and develop opinions about it. We're not all going to agree, and that's okay. I'm not expecting you to agree with me, but I want you to be able to think it through and be able to argue your point of view as we go through to make sure that you understand your own perspective on what leadership is to you, how you're going to develop your own leadership style, and how you're going to deploy it in your ministry. And that's about it. I'm excited to get started. I'm excited to get into it. We're going to have a lot of fun as we go through this. There's going to be lots of material, lots of things I'm going to throw at you, lots of things I'm going to ask you to think about. In the discussion sessions, make sure that you're really putting in some good questions, challenge each other a little bit, push each other as you're going through. Don't be afraid to ask a question, even if it's offensive, just ask it. Now, I would say be tactful, be respectful, all of those things, but pushback is good. So don't be afraid. If you disagree with something that even I say, don't be afraid to push back and put it in there, because I think that's where we all grow together. That's where some of the excitement of the course comes in. And it's what really makes us become better learners, better leaders, and help us to do our calling well. And so as you can see on the screen there, you can see how to contact me. Either one of those are good options. Obviously, you can get me in my email. The website is there for you to just look at and peruse. There's some resources on there if you wanted to look at those. Some free resources you can pull down and look at and use, not necessarily particular to this class, but just something that you can maybe look at and use future in your own ministry and your own leadership. So I know at times it's going to be frustrating. It's going to feel daunting. I'm sure at some point you're going to feel like you're being overwhelmed by all the reading. Just keep moving. Just keep plugging away. Keep communicating to me and ask the questions that you need to. And if you do those things, then we will get through this session just fine all together. All right, I'm looking forward to get started, and I will see you in the discussion questions, the emails, and in the next few weeks. All right, have a good one.